Have you ever promised yourself you'd eat differently tomorrow, only to find yourself reaching for food again when you're stressed, overwhelmed, or emotionally exhausted? What if the problem isn't a lack of willpower? What if your relationship with food has less to do with discipline and more to do with trauma, nervous system regulation, and unmet emotional needs? In this episode, eating disorder specialist and somatic therapist Becca Clegg explains why food often becomes a survival strategy, what cravings may actually be communicating. Now, true healing starts when we stop fighting our bodies and start listening to them. This also applies to people who restrict their eating, not just people who overindulge. Any disorder that you can experience with eating is talked about, and she knows how to help all of it. So let's dive into a really deep and powerful conversation. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Lunar Counseling Podcast. I'm your host, Kiara Brown, a licensed professional counselor, EMDR certified therapist, certified hypnotherapist, and the owner of Lunar Counseling. This podcast is a space for grounded, real conversations with therapists, healers, and guides with the deeper layers of mental health, trauma, embodiment, and what it truly means to heal in an integrated and sustainable way. Today, I am so happy to welcome Becca Clegg to the podcast. Becca is a licensed professional counselor, a CEDS au- author, speaker, and somatic psychotherapist who brings a deeply integrative approach to healing. Her work weaves together behavioral science, physiology, embodiment, and depth psychology, support individuals in reconnecting with their bodies, developing a more compassionate relationship with themselves. She is licensed in both Maine and Georgia and is widely recognized for her work in the eating disorder recovery space. She's the author of Ending the Diet Mindset, Reclaim a Healthy and Balanced Relationship with Food and Body Image, as well as the co-author of Your Recovery Resource, a free online program designed to support loved ones navigating someone else's eating disorder. She's also the host of the Inner Alchemy podcast, where she explores the deeper emotional, psychological, and somatic layers of healing. Her work is rooted in the belief that true transformation happens when we move beyond surface level change and begin to understand the body as an essential part of the healing process. Through her writing, teaching, and clinical work, Becca helps individuals shift out of rigid patterns around food and body image and enjoy a more embodied, sustainable, and connected way of living. So I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much for joining
I'm
us.
really happy to be here. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So I'd love to ask everyone what brought you into the therapy space?
Yeah, it was when I was a teenager going through my own eating disorder recovery, and I was in therapy. And I remember very distinctly being at my therapist's office and thinking, I would like to do this, I think, someday. So that was probably the seed of the origin. But then after going through college, I think I was sociology and history, a little lost. I was a barista. I was a Starbucks barista after my undergrad. But it was just really clear to me that I wanted to work with people. And I actually ended up being a case manager in a geriatric home healthcare company and would go out to my clients' homes and spend time talking to many of them were bedridden, many of them couldn't leave the home. And I realized I was like, I have got to go back to school, be a counselor because I just loved talking with them and understanding them, just the one-on-one kind of connection. So that's what did it. I went back to graduate school and the rest is history.
Wow, that's like you knew you wanted to do it, but you took like a really sharp turn into a
Yeah.
really different direction.
Yep. Yeah. It was one of those things where I could probably trace it all the way back to that day when I knew I wanted to. I just knew I was like, I would love to do this. I was probably 13 at the time, so it was hard to like
Yeah,
really say for certain what I was going to do when I grew up, so to speak.
yeah. Like, on that vein though, like whenever like you were in your therapist's office, was there one thing that they did that you like this like really resonating with me, like that made you want to go into the field?
You know what's funny? I wish I could say yes. I wish I could say, oh, there was this profound moment. The truth of my own story is, and I'm sure my therapists were great, but I don't really even remember much of the therapy I had when I was young in my eating disorder recovery. I'm sure they were nice, but I don't think I really connected with therapy and therapists until I was probably in my early 20s and went back to therapy, I do remember thinking I would love to just connect to people. I've always been interested in the mind and just the soul and the human experience, if you would. But when I finally did, I was finally able, maturity wise, to show up and really connect with my therapist in my 20s. Really, just the path of self compassion and just, I don't know how often you work with eating disorders, but they can be really violent towards the self. They can be
Mhm.
really just a lot of self hatred and cruelty towards the self. And so, just really that path of self compassion and learning how to love all of the parts. That's been a profound journey that I have gone through and have helped others go through as well, because I think it's just a missing piece in so many people's path.
Yeah, I personally don't work a lot with eating disorders. I haven't had that many. I've had maybe one client with some traits, but not enough to be like really fully diagnosable
Sure.
of an eating disorder.
Yeah, it's most people have disordered eating to some extent. It's a very like culturally, culture is just there's a saying that a fish doesn't know it's in water. It's just being a fish. And that's what I think of our culture like. It's like we don't even know that our eating is disordered because it's just how we've been taught to be. There's just a lot of, we call it diet culture. It's just the water we swim in. And so it's hard to even see it sometimes. But yeah, most people see disordered eating in their chair for sure. Hopefully the eating disorders find their way to maybe those that specialize in it. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to work with, but it can be really hard as well. It's not the easiest recovery path to navigate.
Yeah, because isn't it, it's almost like its own addiction almost, where it's like a lifelong recovery, correct?
I don't look at it that way.
Okay.
Depends on the practitioner and like
Okay.
the way that and that's totally, isn't that our field? So
Yeah.
it's like you've got this camp that says this, and it just depends on the camp you're asking. If you talk to anyone in the addiction field, they'd say absolutely. They'd tell you could be addicted to food. In the eating disorder world, they would say no, it's not an addiction. They don't look at it through that lens. But yeah, I will say this, you're 100% right. If somebody's had an eating disorder, is it possible that they're in recovery and then they slip back? 100%. Yeah, just like anything.
Yeah.
I think it's like any other trauma defense. I think these behaviors manifest, the eating disorder behaviors manifest as a way to cope. And then later on, they create more of the problem. But that's the truth for most trauma defenses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you describe a little bit of like your red flags when you're looking at clients so you know, okay, like this is what we're looking at and like you help them navigate those areas?
Do you mean specific to eating disorders?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it depends on the eating disorder, of course. So you've got your more restrictive eating disorder, which would be anorexia. Bulimia can certainly have aspects of that. I look at it like a spectrum. On one end, you have anorexia, and on the other end of the spectrum, you have binge eating disorder. And the anorexia is what I call like the great no. It's no to everything, and not just food, but you're going to see no to life itself, no to relationships. There's a real constriction around the capacity to expand into their life. That's everything is shut down into, and I'm using somatic language because that's how I work with it now, but like a contraction and this desire to get really small, like a contraction would. And it's the body getting very small. Over here on the other end of the spectrum with binge eating disorder, you see an inability to contain. So there's a lack of boundaries. So there's a lack of knowing when you're full. There's just like a tendency towards excess. And in between, you see bulimia, if you look at it like in the middle of the spectrum, because that's you go from one end to the other, where you restrict until you get to the point where you can't handle it anymore. And then you go over here and then you just binge, binge, binge. But that becomes overwhelming. So you purge to get back to the nothing. And then the nothing feels intolerable. So you go back to the too much. And it's this kind of yo yo back and forth. And each one is going to have a different red. I think the diagnostic standard is it changes with every update of the DSM, but it's pretty standard. If you've got on the anorexia, you've got like amenorrhea, if it's a female presenting person with a uterus, which is loss of period, you've got restriction over a certain amount of days, certain calorie intake. Certainly BMI is not really the standard that we work with anymore because it's really accurate, but we do look at weight. And with anorexia, it can be really lethal. So you have to be really careful. And if you get somebody with anorexia, you really need to get like a medical component, dietitian, doctors involved. Same with bulimia. Bulimia also can be really medically compromised because of issues with electrolytes in the system and that sort of thing. And then you have a lot of health complications as well with binge eating disorder. Binge eating disorder is, of course, where you binge for a certain amount of time over a certain amount of time. So that's like the diagnostic criteria. But I think what happens with binge eating disorder is many people don't fit that criteria, but they still feel out of control with food. So they
Hmm.
may not meet that diagnostic criteria, but they still, their lives feel overwhelmed by
Yeah.
their relationship with food. And so I think I see anyone who falls anywhere on the spectrum, whether it's within the diagnostic criteria or somewhere in or around it, through the same lens. We work the same way. It's just a matter of severity, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, it does. So you kind of target more like the somatic piece now versus more like intellectual piece,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is I think is actually really cool because like at that point they are so focused on their body, but they're focused on like on the negative of their body for most
Yeah.
of it. And like when you do the somatic work, you're like finding like the more beautiful parts of their body again.
Yeah. Finding somatic work, this has been like the latter part of my career. It really changed the way I practiced and it changed the way I looked at eating disorders. When I first came into the field years ago, the way we treated eating disorders, I would now look at it and say it was not helpful. There would be, if someone was hospitalized for an eating disorder, they would sit them down and make them eat. And the truth of the matter is, somatically, many people with an eating disorder can't do that. They can't tolerate that. And that actually would be triggering their trauma to force them to eat. And so we've changed as a field. Trauma has changed as a field since I've been in the career. My career has watched trauma change drastically. And now the majority of people I think are taking more of this somatic lens. We used to pathologize the non-eating and or the overeating, and now it's looked at through this much more compassionate lens of, "No, this is what the person is doing to survive." So if we just yank that behavior away from them, that's just going to exacerbate their feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. And how's that helping the person if we don't first resource them? So,
Yeah.
a lot of the ways in which we work now is you don't take that behavior away immediately. Yes, if somebody is compromised, you do have to feed them. And that's where ERC out in Colorado or some of these treatment programs where they have feeding tubes. And that's a different story. You do what saving interventions. But if you're working with someone who has a restricted diet, but they aren't medically compromised, it's a matter of resourcing them so that they can start eating again and they can tolerate that. Because if you just force them to eat they can't tolerate the somatic experience of having the
Yeah.
food in your body. So it's just so much kinder and so much more informed now than it was. Gosh, I guess it was like 20 years ago when I started, but I have learned so much, so much. And yes, being a somatic therapist does help you see your body as a friend and as a wise source of information and as your ally. Such a shift to the way most people with an eating disorder feel about their body because they feel like the body is the end. And it's often because the body's held the trauma. So
Yeah.
of course they want to get out of the body and or if the body is holding all that pain, yeah, they want nothing to do with it. It actually is an intelligent response. It's just not helpful and it's not fully integrated. It's not integrating the whole story, which is it's not the body's fault. The body's actually taking the hit for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true because like I always tell my clients, 'cause I work a lot with trauma myself, is like whenever you get into this trauma for so long, you have just completely cut your body and mind off. So
Yeah.
you have so much in your mind that your body's just like existing and handling it all, and you're just like completely ignoring it the whole time.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And I always tell my clients, it makes sense that you would ignore it. It's where the pain lives. I always lead from this place of nothing about you is broken, not a darn thing. And that's obviously easy for me to say, harder for them to. And it was hard for me when I was first in therapy. Certainly didn't just buy that just because my therapist told me that. But I think that's the journey, right? Is starting to really reconnect with all of those parts that do live and do hold the pain and they live in the body and begin to get to know them, spend time with them rather than keep dissociating and ignoring them. That's, of course, you work with trauma, that overarching journey of
Yeah.
re-entering.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I do have one client that kind of fits like the binging disorder piece. And in my mind, she went from like different types of addictions. She had like a drug addictions, and then like she stopped that, and then went to me, it felt like she just supplemented one for the other with the food.
Yeah.
And, but she's been doing, like, we've been like really working on like her, like dropping into her body and like doing like more like mindful eating.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, when you're eating, like, just don't really like have distractions when you eat, just like sit and actually feel the food,
Yeah.
listen to your body a little bit more.
Yeah.
She said that helps her so much.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. You do see a lot of, what do they call it? Cross addiction, or, where I think of it like that game, Pop and Mole, like one goes down and the other comes up. And I always tell my clients, if you're drowning, you're going to reach up and grab whatever is there, what the lowest branch, you'll grab it. And so oftentimes food can be that low hanging branch because it's available. It's not like going to get crystal meth or something where you have to really struggle or be sneaky. It's on every corner. And so food is an easy thing that can supplement for external thing that helps us to cope with that internal dysregulation, a better words. So you do see that oftentimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And as we're talking, I'm thinking, like, how in a lot of like pop culture, there's this like kind of stereotype where if a woman's crying or she's upset, she needs to have this whole tub of ice cream or she needs to have chocolate or things like that. So, like, in your mind, what do you think would be like a better way of combating like that stereotype and like getting that out of like the mainstream culture?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I think first of all, I always tell my clients, if you want to have the ice cream, have the ice cream. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but it is, if we say don't have the ice cream, the goal is not to have the ice cream. Then truly we're eliciting what's called the deprivation response, which is, oh, I can't have that. And that's the one thing I'm going to think about then. So I always think, first and foremost, ice cream is an option. It absolutely is an option. But let's talk about what are other options. And also, in addition to finding other options, what if we didn't reach for the fix and the solution and or the numbing or the soothing just yet? And instead, what is it about the tears that feel intolerable? Why do we have to go to something to soothe that? Is it not possible? And this is a big ask, but is it not possible just to be with the tears? Can tears just be their own thing? And I think that's really the process, right? Is slowing down enough to say, what is it? What's coming up in those tears? Sorrow, whatever it is, grief. And can I meet that in a different way? And or can I just express it? Does it have to be soothed or taken away? So much of that is from cultural. You think about it, when you were a little kid and you go to the doctor, they give you a shot. Oftentimes they give you a lollipop. It's okay, pain, and now make that go away, make that go away. Parents who are so well intended will do this. And again, I don't judge it at all, but it's like the kid is dysregulated and it's okay, give them a treat. And we just learn that dysregulation is not okay and we must soothe it. And so oftentimes half the battle is just, it's okay to be with sorrow. It's okay to be with grief. Like, we don't have to make this go away. And if it turns out you do want the cake and or the ice cream, that's okay too. It's like a yes and.
Yeah, it's like it's obviously it's always an option. It's always a choice. Like, never taking away the choice, but also knowing like your emotions are here for a reason. They're our messages and telling us like what we need or what's going on in our lives. It allows us to experience it. It's like a full range of the human experience to actually be human.
Absolutely. The truth is, when you do somatic work and just therapy in general, as I'm sure you've talked about, the goal is never to say, I know what your emotion is. I know what you're thinking. That would be like incorrect and wrong of me. If I were to guess, though, just you and I having this conversation, guess, a lot of times when you see people stuffing down something like ice cream is smooth, it's easy, it's creamy, it's sweet. So this is the work of Anita Johnson, she wrote The Eating in the Light of the Moon. It's a book in the eating disorder field, but she'll say, think of the qualities of the food and what they represent. And that might give you some insight into what's happening. I would look for anger. Just out of curiosity, I would say, does that woman who's stuffing back the ice cream, does she have a scream in her that just wants to come out? Is she in some way frustrated? A lot of times stuffing can be pushing back or repressing unconsciously. And that could be something you could just explore with the client. It would not be, you would never lead with that, oh, this is what you're doing, but it certainly could be something to explore. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting, like, actually looking at the qualities of food. So if someone's, like,
Yeah.
binging on, like, maybe chips or something, what is it about the chips that could be, like
Yeah. So like chips, like a tortilla chip, it's crunchy. There's a lot of bite. So when one of the trainings that I did many years ago, I thought was fascinating, was somatic training, was saying that anything that you want to bite, that's like a fight instinct in a mammalian way. Again, these are theories, right? So you use
Yeah.
them as curiosities. You don't tell your client, you're biting, you're angry. But yeah, no, it's oftentimes fiery. It's mixed with salsa. Typically, when you're eating chips, you've got some kind of like a heat substance. Not always, but and again, you might want to look at what is just like, where's the fire? What's burning in you? So you can play with that stuff, and it just gives your client something. It's like working with like an oracle card or something, right? You pull a card, and the person sees what they want to see because that's what's in them. And so when you do metaphor work with food, they're going to see what's in them because
Mhm.
it's them connecting to their own unconscious truths. You just sit back and let them see what they need to see. And that's the process. So it's fun to play with the metaphor of food. Yeah.
That is really cool. I See, to me, I've never thought of it like that. That was, like, a complete shift.
Yeah.
Do you talk about any of this in, like, in the book that you wrote?
Yeah, I do. I do. I talk about food as a metaphor and the way that the book, I wrote it specifically just for anybody who struggles with food. So they don't have to think of yourself as having an eating disorder to relate to this. This actually was my attempt to help people who are not yet at that stage and who are just struggling on a basic level with feeling out of control with food. And that's why I called it Ending the Diet Mindset. But to that end, like I said, Eating in the Light of the Moon, the book by Anita Johnson, she definitely talks about it in there. There's probably other people, but I can't recall right now. But this is definitely something that many people in the field have talked about. And it gives you permission to play with the idea that there's intelligence behind what you're doing. And I think
Mm,
that's so non-shaming. If
yeah.
someone can't stop eating chocolate, I'm just, they beat themselves up about it. And it's okay, but if what you're doing is reaching for, and that's the somatic movement, you're reaching for something sweet, then it's like, what if that is the easiest and the most accessible way you can get sweetness in your life? Because we might think about what in your life is sweet, and we can play on those words. We can say easy, loving, kind, gentle. These all fall under the category of sweet, but not always. But a lot of times people will say, not much. Not much feels gentle, loving, and kind. But at the end of the day, that chocolate sure does hit me exactly where I need to be. And so it's okay. So that's intelligent. Because a lot of what people are just carrying is massive amounts of shame because there's so much stigma around eating and with purity culture. It's, oh, the less you eat, the better you are. And it's just our cultural myth about food is really toxic.
Yeah. And like, there's a lot of missed messages and, like, like, obviously, there's the fat shaming where, like,
Yep.
a woman doesn't look a certain, like, a woman or a man that doesn't look a certain way, and, like, completes all these other
Yep.
things, and it's like you're somehow lesser because you have
Yep.
excess weight on you, and
Yeah.
it's
It
insane.
is just so toxic. Yeah. And for anybody to even talk about food, I have clients who struggle to even talk about what they're eating. They get trapped in that dorsal freeze where they can't even verbalize. It's profound because it's food. It's not shameful. It's not that anything should be inherently shameful, but that's how culture has. We definitely have some very skewed messaging, food and body. And that's what I've been working with when I work with eating disorders and trauma, just in
Yeah,
general, as I'm sure.
yeah. So it's actually, like, if you were in control of selling the messaging for the Food Network, right? Like, it's food advertising. How would you reframe it?
Oh, that's interesting. I think that where do I start? I think that a lot of advertisers play into wellness trends, right? So right now, for instance, I'll give you an example. Protein is the thing right now in the zeitgeist around wellness. Protein forward diets are very popular and have been for a while. And go to your supermarket and just notice how many products you see that are like protein this. You can get protein Cheerios, you can get protein. You could probably get protein anything, and or the advertisers they're not dummies. They're psychologists, like literally, not literally. They're probably not psychologists, but advertising is a form of psychology. And so to that end, they know what will make people buy based on people feeling good about themselves. And so I fall prey to this too. I'm not saying, oh, all these other people buy the protein. No, I will. I'll be like, oh, this must be healthy. It's got protein in it. Because I'm swimming in the water as well. We're
Yeah.
all in this. And I think I would start like at the beginning, which is let's not advertise, pardon my French, shit that's just ridiculous. I'll give you an example of that. Twizzlers, which are delicious, and I'm not vilifying Twizzlers, but one of the things you'll see on a Twizzlers package is it says a fat-free food. And it's very big when you see it. Now, that has been on the packaging since the 1980s when fat-free was the thing. Fat-free was the thing. Now, fat forward, I think we're probably moving out of that. But for a while, fat forward was the thing with the keto diets and stuff.
Yeah.
But
With
in
the
the
healthy
80s,
fats.
free was the thing. And yeah, Twizzlers don't have fat in them. That is true. But that does not make Twizzlers nutritional or good for you or anything. And again, it's okay to eat Twizzlers. You don't have to eat just because something is good for you. But they're doing that to get people to think, ooh, fat free. Ooh, they're playing on diet mindset. And they know it's all about money at the end of the day. So I think I might start there with let's look at how things are advertised. Let's look at packaging. Let's look at labels. But honestly, I might just change the representation in the actual advertising itself. We are doing a much better job at it these days, but for a long time, anytime you would go on media, all you saw were thin white bodies. That was the only thing that was shown. And so I think a very huge part of subconscious psychology is what we see being normalized. And so
Yeah.
if we see all different body sizes, all different colors, all different shapes, all different abilities, and again, we're doing better, and that's just what's normalized in the background 24/7. You got a child who's age 3, by the time they're 13, 23, they are more to think all bodies are fine, just based on the fact that they've seen them. And by all bodies, all shapes, sizes, colors, abilities, and that sort of thing. That would be another way I might approach it. But I would have a lot of digging out to do. I would have a lot of digging out to do. That's a tough question to answer off the top of my head,
Yeah. Because it is so ingrained. And advertisers have been at this for hundreds of years, like with getting food the way it is. Like there's, let me say protein. I thought I have a client that has gone through after bypass surgery and they've gotten protein water. I'm like, what the
Yeah.
heck is protein water? And water is water.
Yeah, I know. And that's just it. Yeah, protein is great. I do think I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian, but protein's great. No, nothing against protein. It's just think we lose sight of the big picture, the holistic picture, when we're just looking at one aspect. Like protein is great, but protein unto itself is not going to make or break us or save us. And I think so many people, like one of the things that happens in disordered eating is we think that we can fix this thing, whatever this thing is. We'll take it's a little bit in the same realm as like a obsession compulsion or an OCD. It's like we take this arbitrary thing, a number, and we say, if I can only have this number, let's say it's a number on the scale, if I can just get to this, everything's going to be okay. And it's the same as saying, and mind you, this isn't a conscious, but it's, if I tap the doorknob 12 times every time I leave, I'll be safe. An obsession and compulsion kind of ritual. The number is arbitrary. Numbers are just numbers, but they are in our mind, they are fixed. I know if I've got 1,200 calories versus 1,250, I can count. Whereas life itself is messy, right? And it's, I don't know if I'm going to be okay tomorrow. I don't know what my mood's going to be like. And so I think so many people are just grasping for something. Oh, if I can just get more protein of it. It's yes, and, or no, and no, it's not going to fix everything. And yeah, protein is important, but like we lose sight of the big picture. And that's one of the things that happens in really severe eating disorders is people literally lose. There's a name for it. I can't think of what it is right now, like some clinical term. It's like they can't see the forest, they can just see the tree. And that actually they can pinpoint that in people who are genetically prone to anorexia have the tendency to, it's not alexithymia, it's some fancy clinical term I can't think of right now, but that is a way in which the anorexic mind thinks.
Wow. Wait, so there's a genetic component to anorexia?
Yeah, there are genetic components to eating disorders. Absolutely. Yep. So that's something to know. Similar to alcohol and drug addiction, there's genetic component. There is a genetic component. I think there is for most mental health diagnoses. But I think it's really fascinating too, because now in the field of I can never pronounce this word, epigenetics, where they're starting
Yeah,
to see like,
epigenetic.
yeah, where we
Yeah,
pass down. I'm fascinated by that. If I had another life, because I just don't have time, but I would go back and be a student of that because I'm like so interested in trauma and the genetic component of trauma and how we pass that down intergenerationally.
yeah, that is. I don't know why I think it was surprising because you're right. Like epigenetics is a real thing, and like we pass on so much of our traumas from so long ago, and even it's just if we had like a grandparent that was like so. Actually, I was raised in the Great. No, I wasn't, but my grandparents were raised in the Great Depression. They were born
Yeah.
in the 20s. They were raised in it. So growing up, my parents, both of them, because they're boomers, like they had that mindset, and they kind of like go down to us because of like of all of that.
100%. Yeah. And so I have become, I love science. Let me say this, like big science fan. And the longer I'm alive and the longer I'm in this career, the more I'm starting to realize that science and spirituality or science and soul or whatever you want to call it, science attachment or relationship are oftentimes saying the same things. And so there's this blend between, yes, genetics is, I'm not a geneticist. I'm not a genetic scientist. I'm sure there's tons of stuff I don't know. But I do think there's also that like social conditioning, and we are raised in the environment of our parents and their traumas. And we all have them, right? Big T, little t. So it's, yes, if my parent has, let's say my parent has a belief that they will not have enough, that could be the belief of someone in a Great Depression kind of thing. There was scarcity. That then gets passed on and it's held in the body as I'm never going to have enough. I'm not going to have enough. And that could lead to binge behavior. And binging is way more than just food. You can binge on stuff, hence hoarding. You can binge on money, the inability to, but there's just, you can binge on anything. You literally on anything. And yeah, it gets passed down. And I do
Yeah,
think it's cool that it's in the genes.
yeah. But you're right that like there's so much there's so many things that were like already in like the spiritual realm. Like people think it's like it's all woo, and then the science catches up with it like 100 years later. It's like, yeah, people have known about this for hundreds of thousands of years because there wasn't
Yes.
like scientific evidence behind it.
Yes.
They didn't believe it.
I so one of the things a colleague of mine, Dr. Tara Arnold, she and I do a lot of teachings, and we're doing a training on the 17th for it's for CEUs, so it's a training for therapists through the knowledge tree, but and it's called the therapeutic body, and what we're talking about is just that, and we're going into let's go back and look at all of these modalities that have existed way before Freud and like Western psychology came around, and let's take a look at them, but through the lens of psychology and science and the empirically balanced. We talk about all these different embodied modalities as a way of saying, look, there are way more ways to help our clients than just the standard track. And our ability as therapists to at least be open minded to that and to let, encourage our clients to explore, whether that's energy healing, whether that's embodied work, whether that's movement, whether that's massage, all the different ways in which we can bring the body into healing. The point is, yeah, we're going to have fun. We're going to talk about all kinds of modalities because, yeah, the science is starting to meet the spirituality is like, or the soul, like I like to call it. And I just think that's really exciting time to be in this field.
Yeah, I agree, and I love that like it is becoming more ma- mainstream to have the spirituality piece in the therapy room.
Yeah.
I love bringing in too, like myself. I'm like, I love talking about how like the energies of like ourselves and how it plays with other people. Like how if we're sitting with other people's energy, we will pick up on their stuff and it can influence us, and all these things can interconnect.
100%. I similarly, if it's appropriate, work for the client. I absolutely love working with the soul, the spirit, and the body all as one. It's how I work because I think, again, I'm a very big fan of the Western model. I cut my teeth in hospitals and psych wards and did all the clinical stuff. But I just think there's more to it. There's more to it than just the what's the symptom? How do we fix it approach? And if we're integrating it all, if we're looking at it through all lenses, then we're really, I think, holding that space that best help our clients, because we are vast. Humans are complicated. We're complex. We're not just one thing.
Yeah. And I think too, it gets deeper than just talking it out.
Yeah.
Too. Talking is great, obviously, it's what we do, talk things out, but it's integrating like the other stuff, like you said, like the somatic work, the soul, the spirit, like all of this stuff coming together does create the better healing.
Yeah.
And I think like with the disorders that you work with a lot is like really hitting them and with their whole person.
Yes.
Again, like add like that focus on like the one tree. No, it's like people that can see all of you rather than like just one little part of you.
Yeah. You do EMDR, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm trained in brain spotting, but again, similarly, it's like just being in those trainings and recognizing, I don't know about how it was for you, but for me, I was like, so where our eyes focus matters. As I was studying somatics, it was just profound to me that everything is playing a role. Everything matters. The way that the client's body shows up in your session, and or the way, if you're listening to this, the way your body is being held right now. You just check in right now. Are your fists clenched? Are your shoulders tight? Are your legs crossed? Like, where's the tension in your body? All of that is sending a signal. It's just, it blew my mind. It's everything plays a role, all operating together. And I think it's empowering to think like that, because then you realize, wow, I have so many different ways I can heal.
Yeah.
And I don't need to outsource that to some. Yes, I work with a therapist, hopefully help other people as their therapist. But I also think the idea that like somebody else or something else has to fix me isn't a great message. It's no, your body is capable of healing itself. You need guidance on your path. We all do, but you are the healer. Your body is the healer, the therapist.
Yeah, I agree with this too. And people like, you give me advice. This, like, it's not what I do. I don't give people advice for how to do things. I just I help them talk it out, and like they come up with their own solutions, because like how I would handle something is not how they would handle it. And there are times where I was like, listen, like, this is what you're telling me. This is what I would do. Like, as they asked for it, like I would say, this is what I would do. But this is not, I'm not you. So you have to do your own thing.
Exactly. Yeah, people do want direct advice. I have to acknowledge that. My clients will be like, just tell me. And they know me. So they're like, I'm like, not going to. But occasionally I'll be like, all right, look, here's what I see. You do it that way, you will. So I get it. And look, I do too. There's times I'm just like, I don't want to do the work. But you and I both know that. Like, ultimately, it's best when it comes from me. If I'm the.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Yeah. I thought, same thing. Listen, I wish I had a magic wand to just like wave and fix your problems. I don't have the magic wand. Just because I had the magic wand, I wouldn't have my own problems.
I know. Truly, right? Yeah. I would definitely use that on the whole world right now.
Yeah. It would be nice. It's honestly, if we could like manifest like a whole, like all therapists in the world, like having the magic wand, the amount of healing that the world we could do in the world would be freaking amazing.
I know. I do. I think that is one of the things when I'm tired and it's hard work, right? To be a therapist, it's its own energetic exchange. And I don't know what you've felt, but the world has been more complex lately. And so it's gotten a bit harder. And it's hard to help others regulate when we ourselves are struggling with our own regulation. So it's just like a complex thing. And that thought that what you just said is what often helps me to stay in my center and find my true north. It's meaningful. Yeah, we don't have wands and we're not able to fix everything, but at least there are places where we can go to work healing. And I truly believe if everybody does their own work, then we as a collective are going to be better off. Like, I think if everyone had done their own work, we'd be where we are right now. Like, yeah. And again, no judgment. Like, I do think people do the best they can. I think some of us just unfortunately take messy paths. So.
Yeah, it is. It's why I do love like how like we're in this time that we are now, like where therapy is more mainstream. It's more accepting. Because like even whenever I was younger, and I'm only 31, like it was so like not that widely accepted, but people needed it. But if you went there, it's no, like you're crazy. You can't have to tell a stranger your family business. Like, what are you doing?
I know. And I'm 50, so I'm a little bit older, relatively, like in 20 years. I think that what makes me so proud of the younger therapists and the younger generation is how they're just like talking about everything. And it's just so different because, like, when I came up, it was very tabula rasa, like blank slate. You don't talk about anything. I think I mispronounced it. I think it's tabula rasa, but that Freudian idea that we don't exist as therapists. And I think that was such a toxic message. I think it was full of patriarchal notions because I think honestly, what it did is it created like an ism where the therapist was like all healed and the patient was all messy. And that's such crap, right? So I think normalizing, yes, I often liken it to a Sherpa. A Sherpa knows the territory. I don't know mountain climb. You'd never pay me to get on a mountain, but if I did, I think a Sherpa would know how to help me because they know the territory. Well, how do they know the territory? They've climbed it. And so it's no, I am not all put together. I am not, I struggle. Like I am as human as they come. But I have walked through the path of healing and at least I've gone to school and done a few things. But this idea that we can't be human as therapists, I think is toxic for the client and the therapist.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that people are out there talking about stuff and normalizing. Yeah, it's part of the human journey. Messy.
Yeah. I think that's 100%. Like, I've talked to some of my other therapist friends about that too. Yeah. Like, clients know a little bit about my own life.
Yeah.
Like they know who I am. They know that I'm not a single mom. I had 2 young kids. I'm married to a man in the military. I have that stuff's going on in my life.
Yep.
They know that. And like, obviously I don't bring my issues to them.
No, I get it though,
Yeah.
but person. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
then,
I just think it's so great.
yeah. And they love that because like if they feel like they can actually open up to me more because they know that I get it. Like I'm
Right.
not like this lofty person up on this pedestal that they can like just come to a Zen master, which I mean would be really cool to be a Zen master, but I'm not a Zen master.
But that's also like from a co-regulation standpoint, like nervous system wise, that's going to create so much more safety in the than if they did think you were this Zen master. Who feels safer around a Zen master? Like, first of all, I don't even know that Zen masters are really even a thing, but if they were, right? Every it's you've got this hierarchy of the gurus up here and everyone's underneath it, and I just think that hierarchical way of being doesn't. They talk about ventral vagal in the polyvagal theory, they talk about ventral vagal about being connection and
Yeah.
like on the same level. And I think that as long as you're us and them or hierarchy, you're never going to get that safe, that real safe space. And if it does, it's going to mirror an old parent-child dynamic, which is breeds dependency. So it's like, how do you walk beside somebody? That's what I think.
Yeah. That's so true. And like I tell all my clients too, like I'm just your passenger in your car holding the map.
Yeah, I love that analogy. That's great.
Yeah. It's like you're the ones driving, you tell me where you want to go. You're setting the
I
speed.
love it. Yeah. Yeah. That's a really cool one. I might steal that.
Yeah, go for it. Everyone drives or they've been in a car. So it's really easy one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like this has been amazing. I learned so much. Are there any tips or tricks that you'd want to leave people with?
Tips or tricks? Okay, I'm just gonna answer off the cuff. I do a lot of inner child parts work. I think that and if this doesn't suit you, then you can just play with the idea of it's so important to have compassion for yourself. And so what I tell my clients a lot of times is on your phone, I don't have it right now. I have my dog, but if you look over here, I have it on my little thing. It's a little kid picture. This is me when I was like 3. Have a picture of yourself as a child when you feel tenderness towards the child, somewhere in your vision scope. Typically, I'll have it on my screensaver and or over there. It's just something that is so important because when you're talking to yourself, when you're keeping yourself accountable, doing so as you would to a child whom you loved is really important. And for many of us, we have this really critical integer, critical inner parent, critical something. We have a critical part. They'll be like, oh, you dummy. And working on the inner self talk is so critical. So, anyway, I use the picture as a way to remind you that's who you're talking to. Would you say that to a child? Because if you wouldn't, don't say it to yourself. And people really like that too because it's easy and it's technology. So you don't want to put it on your phone, just keep it somewhere, just because we forget, right? We forget that these things we say matter to ourselves, and we can be really harsh. We can be our own harshest critic. That is pretty true universally. And so the inner work is treating ourselves the way we would like our partner to treat us. We start there with that unconditional positive regard and love. Can be a huge game changer.
That is amazing. I'm going to take that because that's
Yeah,
like
do it.
great tip.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, that's so cool.
It was such a pleasure talking to you and I've really been a great conversation.
Yeah. One last question before we go
Yeah.
though. How do you prefer people to find you to get in touch with you?
Yes. Yeah, great question. So my website is probably the most concise place, and it is RebeccaClegg.com. There's another Becca Clegg out there who took the URL. So Becca Clegg, wherever you are, call me. I'd love my URL back. But so it's RebeccaClegg.com, but I do go by Becca. And I'm on Instagram, Becca Clegg LPC. That's probably where I'm most active, is on Instagram. I do have YouTube and Facebook and all that stuff. But you can also email me at beccaclegg.com. Yeah, like I'm licensed to do therapy in both Georgia and Maine. And I also do intuitive coaching. If you're outside of those states, there's another way in which I can work with you. It's just a slightly different model.
That's awesome. And all your links and everything will be below too in the description for people to easily click on them.
Thank you. Yes. And yeah. Like I said, everything is on the website. So there's all kinds of stuff. If you have any questions, email me. I do answer. It takes me a minute, but I do answer. So
thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. It's been really nice to talk to you as well. Really enjoyed being on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for taking your time to listen to today's episode. If today's conversation resonated with you and looking for support on your own healing journey, I'm Kiara Brown, LPC, Unit Certified Therapist, Certified Hypnotherapist, and the owner of Lunar Counseling. I provide virtual therapy for adults in Pennsylvania, Vermont, Florida, and South Carolina, specializing in trauma, anxiety, EMDR, hypnotherapy, and therapy intensives. You can learn more at my website, lunar-counseling.com, or schedule a consultation through the link below. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode next Friday. Don't forget, if you want to stay in the know of when the next episode is live, hit the subscribe or follow button down below, and you'll be notified when the new episode goes live in your time zone.